Welcome everyone to Ayni Living Conversations. This is our 103rd conversation, and today we're starting a new subject, a new era. We are ready for a new stage of living in Ayni, where we are ready to receive interns. We're ready to have people come and be part of this. And so for that reason, and because it's also really good to dive deeper into any subject, we're diving deeper into the meaning of Ayni. Ayni, the word for reciprocity in the Andean world. And we've had a couple of conversations about this, a couple of shows a long time ago. And so, but this time we're going to go deeper into it. And that's one of the things that characterizes Sacred Blue Heron Woman here with us, and that characterizes any quest for truth, any quest for freedom. It's almost like a requisite is to go deeper, because we live in a very shallow society, in a very shallow mindset, and we must really learn to go deeper into anything that we want to learn and look into. So hello everyone, and here's Sacred Blue Heron Woman with you.
Yeah. So that's a good way to start. So as we know, Ayni, an Andean word that is part of the Andean way of life. It's not part of it. It is the Andean way of life, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is translated as reciprocity and means the interchange of loving kindness, knowledge, and the fruits of one's labor between individuals, between humans and the environment, and between humans and the spirit or invisible world. Reciprocity in the Andes implies that one's labor is shared, and the purpose of reciprocity is the maintenance of life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ayni also implies respect for life. When we return the good that comes to us and show respect without judging the giver or what is received, it becomes benevolence in its highest form. Ayni is so much deeper than mutual respect and helping others, however. It also implies the interconnection between humans and the natural world, our more than human life world that sustains us. Ayni includes shared beauty and not just beautiful things. So when I comment to you on a beautiful day or share a story of synchronicity, this is saying, share the beauty of this moment with me. This is Ayni. Also, and we humans are tuned for relationship. Our eyes, our skin, our tongue, our ears, and nostrils are all gates where our body receives the nourishment of otherness. The landscape of shadowed voices, the feathered bodies and antlers and tumbling streams, those breathing shapes are our family and the beings with whom we are engaged, with whom we live and celebrate. For the largest part of our species' existence, we have negotiated relationships with every aspect of our sensuous surroundings, exchanging possibilities with every flapping form, with each textured surface and shivering entity that we happen to focus on. All could speak, articulating and gesture, whistle and sigh through a shifting web of meanings that we felt on our skin, or inhaled through our nostrils, or focused with our listening ears, and to which we replied, whether with sounds or through movements or minute shifts of mood. The color of the sky, the rush of waves, every aspect of the earthly sensuous could draw us into a relationship, into Ayni, fed with curiosity and spiced with danger. Every sound was a voice, every scrape or blunder was a meeting with the thunder or the oak or the dragonfly or with a snake or with a rock or more, and from all of these relationships, our collective sensibilities were nourished. We still need that which is other than ourselves and our own creations. It is time for us to renew our acquaintance with the sensuous world in which our technologies and techniques are rooted. Without the oxygenating breath of force, without the clutch of gravity and the tumbled magic of river rapids, we have no distance from our technologies. No way of assessing their limitations, no way to keep ourselves from turning into them. We need to know the textures, the rhythms, and the tastes of our bodily world. and to distinguish readily between such tastes and those tastes of our own invention. Direct sensuous reality, in its more than human mystery, remains the sole solid touchstone for an experiential reciprocal Ayni world. Despite all the mechanical artifacts that now surround us, the world in which we find ourselves before we set out to calculate and measure it is not an inert or mechanical object. It is a living field, an open and dynamic landscape subject to her moods and metamorphoses. Our life and the world, the more than human life world's life, are deeply intertwined. The world and you, the world and I reciprocate at one another. The landscape is hardly a determinate object. It is actually an ambiguous realm that responds to our emotions and calls forth feelings from us in turn. Whatever we perceive is necessarily entwined with our subjectivity, already blended with the dynamism of life and sentience. Our bodies are mysterious and multifaceted phenomenon that always seem to accompany our awareness, and is indeed the very location of our awareness within the field of appearances. Yet this field contains many other bodies, many other forms that move and gesture in a fashion that is similar to ours. The real world, the more than human life world in which we find ourselves, the world that our sciences work so hard to fathom, is not a sheer object, not a fixated and finished atom from which all subjects and subjective qualities can be pared away. It is an intertwined matrix of sensations and perceptions, a collective field of experience lived through many different angles. The mutual inscription of others in our experience and or ourself in other people's experiences affects the interweaving of our individual phenomenal fields into a single ever-shifting fabric, a single phenomenal world or reality. As we know from our everyday experiences, the phenomenal world is remarkably stable and solid, and we are able to count on it in so many ways. And yet we take for granted much of its structure and character. The experience solidity is precisely sustained by the continual encounter with others, reciprocity, with other embodied subject, other centers of experience. The encounter with other perceivers continually assures us that there is more to any one thing or to the world than we can perceive in any moment. You can directly see a particular tree, and you know or intuit that there are also those facets of the tree that are visible to other perceivers that you cannot see. Like you can only see one side of the tree. You can't see the other side unless you walk around it, and then the side you were just on is no longer visible to you. You sense that the tree is much more than what you directly see of it, since it is also what the others whom I see perceive of it. So you can sense as perceivable present, as it already existed before you came to look at it. And it will not dissipate when you turn away from it, since it remains an experience for others, not just for other humans, but for other sentient organisms, for the birds that nest in its branches, and for the sensitive cells and tissues of the oak, or the other tree, whatever tree it is you're looking at, quietly drinking sunlight through its leaves. It is this informing of your body perceptions by the evident perceptions and sensations of other bodily entities that establishes for us the relative solidity and stability of our more than human life world. The intersubjective world of life is the world of our immediately lived experience, as we live it, and yet prior to all our thoughts about it. It is that which is present to us in our everyday tasks and enjoyments, reality as it engages us before being analyzed by our theories and our sciences. The more than human life world is the world that we can count on without necessarily paying it much attention. The world of the clouds overhead and the ground underfoot, of getting out of bed, and preparing food and turning on the tap for water. Easily overlooked, this primordial world is always already there when we begin to reflect, philosophize, or grow food. It's not a private dimension. It's a collective dimension, the common field of our lives and the others' lives with which ours are entwined. And yet it's profoundly ambiguous and indeterminate, since our experience of this field is always relative to our situation within it. So the life world is the world we organically experience in its enigmatic multiplicity and open-endedness, prior to us conceptually freezing it into a static space of facts. The life world is peripherally present in any thought or activity that we undertake. And whenever we try to attempt to explain this world conceptually, we seem to forget our active participation in it, the Ayni that flows between us and it. And as we try to represent the world, we inevitably forfeit its direct presence. The more than human life world is probably quite different for cultures. The world that a people experience and come to count on is deeply influenced by the ways we live and engage the world. If the worlds experienced by humans are so diverse, how much more diverse still must be the life worlds of other animals, of wolves or owls, or a community of bees or ants. And yet, despite this multiplicity, there are basic structures of the life world that are shared, elements that are common to all the different cultures and even to different species. The life world has various layers, that underneath the layer of the diverse cultural life worlds, there reposes a deeper, more unitary life world, always there beneath all our cultural acquisitions, a vast, continually overlooked dimension of experience that supports and sustains all our diverse and discontinuous worldviews. So all bodies, including yours and mine, are first located relative to the ground of the earth, and the earth herself is not in space, since she first has provided the space. She is space. It is only as a body that you are visible and sensible to others. Your body is your insertion in the common or intersubjective field of experience. Most of us have been programmed to consider ourselves as something incorporeal. Yet without this body, without this tongue, or without the ears, we could neither speak or hear another's voice, nor would we have anything to speak about, or even to reflect on or to think, since without any contact, any encounter, without any glimmer of sensory experience, Ayni, there would be nothing to question or to know. So your living body is the very possibility of contact, not just with others, but possibility of contact and Ayni, or reciprocal Ayni contact. Not just with others, with yourself, as it's the very possibility of reflection, of thought, of knowledge. So now I invite you to recognize the sensuous and sentient life of your body itself. To acknowledge that I am this body is not to reduce the mystery of your yearnings and the fluid thoughts to a set of mechanisms or yourself to a determinate robot. Rather, it is to affirm the uncanniness of your physical form. The boundaries of your living body are open and indeterminate, more like membranes than barriers, as they define a surface of metamorphosis and exchange of Ayni. Your breathing, sensing body draws its sustenance and its very substance from the soils, plants, animals, and elements that surround it. And it continually contributes itself in turn to the air, to the composting earth, to the nourishment of insects and oak trees, squirrels, turtles, snakes, fish, ceaselessly spreading out of itself as well as breathing the world into itself, so that it is very difficult to discern at any moment precisely where your living body ends and where it begins. And this is true Ayni. We can't get much deeper into Ayni than this right now. Understanding how much we're a part So your body is the very means of entering into relation with all things, not just other humans. Your sensing body is not a programmed machine. It's an active and open form, continually improvising its relation to things and to the world. It's Ayni. Its actions and engagements are never wholly determinate, since they must ceaselessly adjust themselves to a world and the terrain that is itself continually shifting. So there's constantly a dynamic Ayni going on. If your body was truly a set of closed or predetermined mechanisms, it could never come into genuine contact with anything outside of itself. It could never perceive anything really new, and it could not be startled or surprised. When your body responds to the mute solicitation of another being, that being responds in turn, disclosing to your senses some new aspect or dimension that in turn invites further exploration. The silent or wordless dance of perception, or Ayni, is always going on. It's an improvised duet between your animal body and the fluid breathing landscape that it inhabits. To your sensing body, no thing presents itself as utterly passive or inert. Only by affirming the animateness of perceived things do you allow your words to emerge directly from the depths of your ongoing reciprocity with the life world. You participate in the existence of a lot of beings, influencing each other and being influenced. Perception, or Ayni, always involves at its most intimate level the experience of active interplay or coupling between your perceiving body and all which it perceives. Prior to all our verbal reflections, at the level of our spontaneous sensorial engagement with the world around us, we are literally animists. Your perceiving body does not calculate logical probabilities. It gregariously participates in the activity of the more than human life world, lending its imagination to things in order to see them more fully. That which we call imagination is an attribute of our senses. Imagination is the way our senses themselves have of throwing themselves beyond what is immediately given in order to make tentative contact with the other sides of things that we can't sense directly. In other words, with the hidden, invisible aspects of the sensible. Since the act of perception, or Ayni, is always open-ended and unfinished, you are never wholly locked into any particular instance of participation. You always retain the ability to alter or suspend any particular instance of participation, or Ayni. We can replace a lot of these words with Ayni.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you can never suspend the flux of participation. You can never suspend the flux of Ayni itself. In contact with the native forms of the earth, your senses are slowly energized and awakened, combining and recombining in ever-shifting patterns. All the other shapes and forms we see around us have co-evolved like ourselves with the rest of our shifting earth. Their rhythms and forms are composed of layers upon layers of earlier rhythms. And in engaging them, your senses are led into an inexhaustible depth that echoes your own flesh. The patterns on a stream's surface as it ripples over the rocks or on the bark of a tree or in a cluster of weeds are all composed of repetitive figures that never exactly repeat themselves. They are composed of iterated shapes to which our senses may attune themselves, even while the gradual drift and metamorphosis of these shapes draws our awareness in unexpected and unpredictable directions. In contrast, the mass-produced artifacts of our civilization draws our senses into a dance that endlessly reiterates itself without variation. To your sensing body, these artifacts are, like all phenomena, animate and even alive, yet their life is profoundly constrained by the specific functions for which they were built.
Mm-hmm.
And once your body masters these functions, the machine-made objects can teach your senses nothing further. They are unable to surprise you, and so you must constantly acquire new built objects, new technologies, the latest model of this or that to stimulate yourself. The super straight lines and right angles of our office architecture and houses make our animal senses wither, even as they support our abstract intellect. The wild, earth-born, reciprocal nature of the materials, the woods, clays, metals, and stones that went into the building are readily forgotten behind the abstract and calculable form. As we return to our senses, we will gradually discover that our sensory perceptions are simply our part of a vast, interpenetrating network of perceptions and sensations borne by countless other bodies, supported not just by ourselves, but by the icy streams tumbling down granite slopes, by owl wings and lichens, and by the unseen imperturbable wind. Our life world is a profoundly carnal reciprocal field. The life world is our biosphere as it is experienced and lived from within our intelligent body by the attentive human animal who is entirely a part of this life world that you experience. Our biosphere can be considered a collective flesh. This flesh is the mysterious tissue or matrix that underlies and gives rise to both you as the perceiver and the perceived, or what you perceive as interdependent aspects of its own spontaneous activity. To demonstrate this notion of the flesh, we need to look at the fact that your hand is able to touch things only because your hand is itself a touchable thing. And so it's entirely part of the tactile world it explores. Similarly, your eyes with which you see things are themselves able to be seen. They are included within the visible field that they see. To touch the coarse skin of a tree is at the same time to experience your own tactility and to feel yourself touched by the tree. Ayni, reciprocity. Consider your hands for a moment. Allow your gaze to wander across the open field of your palm, following the creases as they cross one another and converge. Let your eyes climb the limber trunks of your fingers. Each of these trunks has a single fold at its base and two forward folds in its stance, apart from your thumb, whose single hinge makes it a more lumbering being than the others. Allow your thumb to reach across and touch your other fingers, investigating their textures with its tip as your palm's pliant expands folds in the middle. Now try exploring that hand with the fingers of your other hand, letting them slide into the deep valleys that separate the fingers. Taste the pleasure of this contact, the easy resonance, the easy Ayni between these two exceedingly tactile creatures. The very organ with which you touch and explore the palpable textures and surfaces of the world, your hand, is itself a thoroughly palpable or touchable entity. It has its own texture surface like the ripple sand of a beach or the porous skin of a piece of fruit. This hand, your hand that touches things, is entirely part of the tactile field that it explores. It is one of the textured inhabitants of the field that is always in reciprocity, in Ayni. Now wander to a tree. Reach out your hand to feel the surface of a single leaf between your thumb and fingers. Note the coolness of the leaf against your skin and the vein texture your fingers might discover as they wander across it. Now notice another slightly different sensation, the sensation of the tree touching you, exploring your fingers as you're exploring its leaves. That is Ayni. The leaf is also exploring your fingers, its pores sampling the chemistry of your skin, feeling the smooth and bulging texture of your thumb as your thumb feels it. That's Ayni. And now that we understand that our hands are included within this tactile world, we are now also able to notice and understand reciprocity, Ayni. Whenever you touch any entity, you are also being touched by the entity. Such reciprocity, such Ayni, is the very structure of perception. We experience this sensuous world by rendering ourselves vulnerable to that world. Sensory perception is this ongoing interweavement. The terrain enters you only to the extent that you allow yourself to be taken up within the terrain. How does your weight feel to the grasses beneath your feet? How do your steps feel to the terrain as you walk on it? Notice that the way your feet pressing against the coarse ground are also met by that ground, as your skin is probed by the soil and the pliant bristling braids if you were outside barefoot. An old ancestral affinity between your human foot, an old ancestral Ayni between your human foot and the solid ground is replenished by the simple act of stepping outside without shoes. The most intimate contact between your body and the earth unfolds not just at the bottom of your feet, but along the whole surface of your porous skin. For earth is not merely that dense presence underfoot, it's also the transparent air that enfolds us. The space between you and another is not a void, it is thick with swirling currents, a drift of pollens and the silken threads of spiders, a medium instilled with whiffs and subtle pheromones and other messages riding the unseen flows that compose the atmosphere of this breathing life world that we are in Ayni with. You are not just immersed in this invisible medium, you are a participant with it, inhaling this mystery through your nostrils and drawing it into your lungs, metamorphosing it there, exchanging certain vital elements for others before you breathe it back out into the world. The atmosphere is a subtle ocean steadily accelerated and rejuvenated by the diverse entities that dwell within it, a fluid medium of exchange between the plants and the animals and weathered rocks and trees. While the air is invisible, it is nonetheless quite palpable. We can feel the wind moving against our face, riding the curve of our ears. We can feel it tugging the hair on our head, feel the air part around our wrists and legs as they slice their way through its unseen thickness. And just as we can sense the relative speed of its motion, the dryness or dampness of its touch, we can also sense the breeze sampling our qualities as it brushes against us, tasting the intensity of our sweat, the mottled texture of our skin. We can feel the air envelop and settle around us as it takes a mold of our shifting shapes. And if we assent to its inquiries, responding to its very expeditions along our surface, then our actions take on a new elegance. The grace that flows from the ongoing and improvised dance with the sensuous medium that enfolds us. The world is perceiving itself through us. The world is in our more than human life world is in reciprocity with us at all times. As an omnivore, an eater of the flesh of plants and trees and sundry animals, willing to taste almost anything, and so kindred in our gustatory and cognitive curiosity to most other omnivores, we find ourselves entwined in a great gift economy where each life partakes of other lives and gives of itself in return. No matter how hard we work to exempt ourselves from this economy, whether by dissociating ourselves from our animal body or trying to eradicate every disease or sealing our remains in lead-lined caskets, we cannot exempt ourselves from our participation in the cycles of exchange, the cycles of Ayni. As we ingest the land's nourishment, not only through our eyes and ears, also through our hungry mouths, chomping leaves, seeds, and mussels with our teeth, moistening them with our saliva and swallowing all this down into our depths, we are incorporating the life world's flesh into our own. But it can only be so because we too are edible. We too are food. We can sense this world not only because we are entirely a part of this, also by the virtue of our own carnal density and dynamism. We can feel the tangible texture, sounds, and shapes of this biosphere because we are tangible, resonant, audible shapes in our own right. We are born of these very waters, this very air, this loamy soil, this sunlight. Nourished and sustained by the substance of the breathing earth, we are flesh of its flesh. We are neither pure spirit nor pure mind. We are sensitive and sentient bodies, able to be seen, heard, tasted, and touched by all the beings around us. There are innumerable distinctions to be drawn between the palpable phenomena of this life world, yet each particular presence partakes of a common mystery, the unfathomable upsurge of existence itself. Each thing, form, expresses this mystery in its own manner and style, yet each is equivalently outrageous. A clump of dirt is no less outrageous than a roaring, marauding brown bear, each enacting its own tenuous and improvised way in the world, each gifting its rhythms to the riot of life that surrounds it, and receiving the riot of life in return. Ayni. Simply to exist or continue existing is already active. It's already a doing, and so no phenomenon is utterly passive without efficacy or influence. To allow this influence into our speaking, to affirm the unique dynamism of the various entities we meet in the course of a day, to acknowledge that whatever snags our attention has its own agency or life and snagged us to touch us, to be in reciprocal relationship with us. Is a new way of being. And such a way of speaking inevitably begins to open our stifled senses, opening the possibility of interaction and exchange, allowing reciprocity to begin to circulate between our bodies and our breathing earth. If we speak of things as inert or as inanimate objects, we deny their ability to actively engage and interact with us. We foreclose their capacity to reciprocate our attentions, to draw us into silent dialogue, to inform and instruct us. We are in and of this more than human life world, materially embedded in the same rain-drenched field that the rocks and the ravens inhabit, and so can come to knowledge only laterally by crossing paths with other entities and sometimes lingering, responding to a thing's sparkle or its callous coolness, slowly becoming acquainted with its characteristic tenor and style, the unique manner in which it resists our assumptions. All of our knowledge is carnal knowledge, born of the encounter between our flesh and the cacophonous landscape we inhabit. All beings around us are participant with us in the ongoing emergence of the real. It is this primordial and ongoing participation, or Ayni, that has gradually shaped the glistening eyes with which you now view the lights and shadows of the sphere, as it has shaped our listening ears, able to detect a wide range of sounds so vital to our human life, while oblivious to many others. This ageless intercourse, or Ayni, between our body and the earth, this co-evolution has shaped the organs and tissues of every earthly organism, deepening the color of our feathers and the power of our claws, intensifying the bitterness of our leaves, outfitting our seeds with cotton sails so they'll blow far on the summer winds. It is an inescapable implication of the evolutionary insight that we humans are corporally related by direct and indirect webs of evolutionary affiliation, or Ayni, to every other organism that we encounter. It is not only other animals, plants, trees, and simpler organisms that have contributed to the unique character of us, a human creature. It is also the fluid ocean and the many rocks that compose the soils and the way the mountains gather clouds above their high ridges. These planetary structures are not extrinsic to human life. They are not arbitrary or random powers that summoned us into existence. They are, in fact, the constitutive powers that summoned us into existence, and so are secret allies, the totemic guides of all our actions. Our nervous system is informed by the particular gravity of the sphere, by the way the sun's light filters down through the Earth's atmosphere, and by the cyclical tug of our moon and other planets in a thoroughly palpable sense. You and I are born of this planet. Our attentive bodies co-evolved in Ayni in a rich and intimate rapport with the other bodily forms that compose the shifting flesh of this breathing life world. So it's our elemental earth that has lent us our particular proclivities and our specific styles of behavior. Our ways of moving, our modes of perception, our unique habits of thought and contemplation have all been informed by the variegated nature of this wild, flowering world. The unfolding biosphere provides the inescapable template of Ayni for our existence. Our brains did not evolve in order to understand itself. Rather, the complex organization of our brains evolved as a consequence of our sensorial and muscled engagement with the complex and ever-shifting landscapes that surround us. So our brains then have a natural proclivity to help us orient and interact with the enigmatic surroundings, to be in Ayni with them. It's only the lived, felt relationships, the Ayni, that we maintain daily with one another, with the other creatures, the forms that surround us, and the terrain that sustains us, that can teach us the use and misuse of all our abstractions. Despite all our giddy technological dreams, this vast and inscrutable land, drenched by the rains and parched by the summer sun, remains the ultimate ground and final horizon of all our science. It is not a set of mechanisms waiting to be figured out. This is a breathing life world. It's not a stack of resources waiting to be utilized by us, or a storehouse of raw materials waiting to be developed. She is not an object. She is the very body of wonder, a shuddering field of intelligence in whose life we participate actively every day in Ayni. And that's all I have for tonight.
Wow, it's so beautifully worded and so superbly weaved. The way you described it, the words you've used, it's just such an amazing lecture. I did a little peek and saw that there were some live viewers and all. Got 2 live viewers, I think, still.
Cool.
So I think this is one of the most beautiful lectures that we've had so far, and just as you're describing this, I'm having my, you're helping me get a deeper understanding of the interaction I'm having with a little kitten right here. I have my little kitten, and she's wanting to bite me, and she's wanting to play with me, and at the same time, it's her way of cuddling.
Yeah.
In her age where she's like a teenager, so she does a lot of cuddling by means of biting.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
But as you're describing it, I'm having the experience, and it's helping me understand deeper this tactile situation, this tactile exchange. I'm having it as you're describing it. So everything is weaving itself in such a beautiful manner. And what I want to say, what I think is pertinent from this, my contribution to this subject, would be the challenge of coming back into Ayni, right? Because I mean, we can, anybody somebody that's watching this, anybody that's watching this, and we got a lot of viewers from Rumble, and anybody that really is hitting this information that is kind of stumbling upon us is doing that because they are in a quest of freedom, because they are in a process of awakening.
Right.
And one of the big things we have to awaken to is the fact that we live at this moment in time. Humanity has been hijacked. That's how I see it. Has been hijacked by a group of crazy.
Well, we've been hijacked by the overculture.
Right. So we've been hijacked, and so that's kind of like the big problem we have, and the solution to that is coming back into nature, coming back into Ayni. But then
Right.
there's this big challenge, which is crucial to understand and to have this transformation of our mindset happen, where we might understand that we need to get out of the system and we need to leave the system and we need to create our own systems or in our own ways of living. But we have a hard time. The big challenge is coming together.
Yeah.
Leaving the individualist mindset, the individualist nature, and really opening up to living in a relationship, having a real deep relationship, another way of communicating with others that is not the traditional way, that where we are always wearing masks, where we're never saying what we really want to say or need to say. We're always avoiding conflict. We're always just playing along, right?
Right.
Everybody is just playing along, and nobody's really getting out of it, getting out of that mindset and out of that individualistic. So I see a lot of attempts to create freedom cells, and the freedom cells, and you see the freedom cells movement, and this freedom movement, and this whatever movement, and all these people that are so freedom apparently minded, but they have this real big challenge that they're not surpassing, which is coming together really, and really
Right.
opening up, really saying, okay, we cannot do this through the individualistic paradigm. That doesn't work. We need to be able to come to join, to merge with somebody else. We got to be able to do that. We got to be able to
Well, but
humble ourselves into a community.
what we don't realize is it's not an individualistic style we've been driven to. This is isolationism. It's not individualistic. We
Okay, so
need,
that's a better word,
in
yeah.
our merging and coming together, we cannot lose ourselves in somebody else. We cannot. We have to be.
That's the
We have to bring forward our total individuality, uniting
that's
with others.
important to say, because that's the other side of the coin, where we're apparently so individualistic, but yet there is no individuality. We're all just playing along the system.
Yeah.
We're just
Well, I call
copies
it
of the same
isolationist.
program, right?
I call it isolationist rather than individualistic
That's
because
much better. I'm gonna use that. That's a lot better. Isolationism. So that's a big challenge. We need to, and that's such a good reminder for me to change that word. So that's a big challenge I'm seeing, that people need to, everybody wants to have the ease of being able to, they want freedom, they want to get out of the system, but they're afraid of losing the privilege of the ease, the facility of a consumerist system.
yeah,
Because when you really want to get out of that, you really have to think about things, and you really need to figure out stuff. You can't just press a button. You can't just choose and buy,
yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
can't just be told and buy it. You have to actually think it. You have to process it. You have to understand it. You have to incorporate it. You have to have a relationship with it. With every
Exactly.
bit of knowledge, with every bit of the whole of life, all the activities that are required to have a plentiful life. And that's a big challenge. But I want to say that, and that's, somebody, if we are to get somewhere, somebody else than just you, Ingrid, and me, and whoever else is out there needs to come together. We need to come together.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would be my last words on this subject, and kind of my big contribution. You've described so much of Ayni, and that I really wouldn't add anything else. You've gone so much deeper and described it as the basis of all exchange, all relationships, everything is impregnated by it.
Yeah.
Cellular life, biology, the dynamics of physics, atoms, anything, anywhere you look at, there's exchange, interchange. There's Ayni, there's reciprocity.
There is, and it has shifted my my way of thinking a whole lot to realize that when I look at a flower and say, "Oh wow, that's beautiful," and I bend in closer, that flower was beckoning me to come into relation, into Ayni with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think last year I grew stinging nettles, and they all ended up dying because of the summer. But there were a couple times I was like, they were just little tiny plants. I grew them from seeds, but they're stinging. So I now I'm thinking that those two plants must have laughed themselves to death constantly because they kept summoning me to stick my nose on them and then going, "Oh, I did that again."
Yeah. I mean, you're uncovering such a crucial part of the worldview of Native peoples, where they have this completely different way of having a relationship with the perception as well. How you perceive the world, how you perceive your world, the world around you, the beings around you, how you everything is really a lot more alive, and has
Yeah,
its own consciousness.
yeah, it does.
And we have just been blinded to that. We've grown in a society that has negated that and has enclosed our perceptions and our realities in some
Yeah,
kind of virtual fakeness kind of thing. So opening up means and coming through and becoming free is something. It's a process that happens in our perceptions, in our way we relate, in everything. And I hope that people are getting that breakthrough, and I hope that breakthrough takes them to coming together and becoming part of Ayni. So if anyone wants to is kind of there and would like to come together with us, you can totally, you're most welcome to do so and visit our website or email us or comment or do what, however you want to reach out is good. And but please do so. And with that being said, I have to ask, what is the next conversation about?
well, we're going to go into the sacred geometry of the Vitruvian Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and we're going to add so much more to it that shows us how we are material beings.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I remember you telling me that, and I remember me saying that I want to support a little bit with graphics or something. So I'll try. I'll see what creative thing I can do for that. So that's the invitation, and we change it. We change it for next week to 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, not 8:30 anymore. 8 o'clock, a half an hour earlier. That's Central Standard Time, and you can see it live, or you can see it recorded either in Rumble or YouTube at Aloha Ayni Dao Tao Living. That's our name. That's our address. That's how you can find us anywhere and everywhere. So thank you, Sacred Blue Heron Woman,
Yeah.
and thank you everyone that was here watching. And we appreciate your support, and we appreciate you being here. And with that, I will end the live stream.
Cool.